commented underneath that video, "We want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. Stop grabbing him, please."
That assurance isn't random. She likely understands the state of the CBA talks better than most, and her confidence carries significance because she represents the single strongest bargaining chip the players possess. The surge in negotiating power didn't appear out of thin air. It was sparked by the impact of Caitlin's rookie season. Arena attendance skyrocketed. Television ratings hit unprecedented levels. Merchandise sales exploded, and sponsors who had long ignored the league suddenly rushed to be involved. That momentum exists largely because of her visibility and influence. So when she speaks casually about an upcoming season, it holds weight. If there were serious doubts about games being played, she'd likely be far more guarded. Her relaxed certainty suggests insight into how negotiations are trending. At a recent USA basketball camp, Caitlin addressed the labor discussions directly, stating that none of it matters on the surface. That comment could easily be brushed off as one player showing support for another. But when it comes from Caitlin Clark and directly references that exact situation, it naturally draws attention. Physical grabbing
has seen it, but Caitlin Clark commented underneath that video, "We want to see Steph make 12 threes a game. Stop grabbing him, please." And she never really, she would say when something was a foul or to, a complaint to that ilk. But Caitlin hasn't come out and said, what they're doing isn't basketball.
Without games being played. She described the moment as pivotal for the league, emphasized standing firm on core principles, but also acknowledged the necessity of compromise. That perspective is impressively grounded for someone so early in her professional career, and it reflects a clear understanding. That line, "It's not real basketball," carries far more meaning than it appears on the surface. What Steph is carefully communicating is that when defenders abandon positioning, footwork, and anticipation in favor of constant grabbing, clutching, and face guarding, it stops being legitimate defense. At that point, it's panic disguised as toughness.
Are you in any way being guarded the way they did in a regular season game?
There's a part of you that fights it just because it's not real basketball, but there's also a part of it that's flattering. Just knowing that you demand that much attention, and also what it does to create shots for other guys on the floor. So, and I've seen it all, so I know if that's how they want to guard, how I can be effective, not let it take me out of the game, but also kind of use it to our advantage as a team. And then it's also funny at times just how egregious it is. There's one possession, I gotta find I actually get the footage. I actually stayed back in the backcourt a long time on purpose just to see how long Sion would stay with me. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, there's a clip of Colin Sexton covering you when you left the court.
Yeah, we both knew what we were doing. We were having fun.
That line, "It's not real basketball," carries far more meaning than it appears on the surface. What Steph is carefully communicating is that when defenders abandon positioning, footwork, and anticipation in favor of constant grabbing, clutching, and face guarding, it stops being legitimate defense. At that point, it's panic disguised as toughness. And Caitlin Clark understands that reality better than anyone, because she experienced it nonstop throughout her rookie WNBA season. From the opening weeks, she was pressured more aggressively than any other player in the league. Teams trapped her the moment she crossed midcourt, often throwing 2 or even 3 defenders her way instantly. Nearly every possession involved contact, arms tugging, bodies leaning, hands checking, turning routine offensive sequences into physical battles before she could even begin her move.
Clark, and you get the attention that she does, you're going to get outsized defensive attention. In a rookie season, she was blitzed more to start that year than any team. A lot of that is strategy. They know what she can do. They know where she has the ball, all that stuff. But then there's part of it like trying to prove a point against her. And then, of course, when you want to rough up the other team's star, that's what coaches preach. If the refs are going to let you do it, you do it. It's something that became a point of contention across her WNBA career so far, with Stephanie White, who probably deployed that strategy with the Connecticut Sun, saying that too much contact is allowed on the perimeter. And that's a thing across the WNBA, and it became a theme across the WNBA. But, Caitlin is allowed to be grabbed and held and all those things. Even to the point where I remember there was a broadcast where Rebecca Lobo pointed out, like, there's a foul, and there's a foul, and there's a foul, like Oprah.
And Caitlin Clark understands that reality better than anyone because she experienced it nonstop throughout her rookie WNBA season. From the opening weeks, she was pressured more aggressively than any other player in the league. Teams trapped her the moment she crossed midcourt, often throwing 2 or even 3 defenders her way instantly. Nearly every possession involved contact. Arms tugging, bodies leaning, hands checking, turning routine offensive sequences into physical battles before she could even begin her move. On the surface, that comment could easily be brushed off as one player showing support for another, but when it comes from Caitlin Clark and directly references that exact situation, it naturally draws attention. Physical grabbing, holding, and constant contact on the perimeter has been one of the most talked about parts of Clark's WNBA experience so far, which makes her words feel a lot more pointed. To understand why it matters, you have to look at what Steph Curry actually said in that interview. When asked whether the way the Hornets defended him was frustrating, his answer struck the perfect balance. He admitted that part of him pushes back against it because it doesn't resemble true basketball, yet another part of him sees it as a compliment, recognizing that the extra focus proves how much pressure he puts on defenses and how that attention opens opportunities for his teammates. Some of what she faced can be justified as tactical defense, because when an elite shooter is on the floor, teams naturally modify how they guard her, but much of it went beyond normal coverage and drifted into contact that would be whistled immediately in almost any other setting. Officials largely allowed it to continue. Stephanie White, who now coaches Clark in Indiana but schemed against her in Connecticut last season, openly acknowledged that perimeter physicality across the league is excessive. Rebecca Lobo even highlighted a string of missed calls during a broadcast, pointing out repeated fouls on Clark one after another as if she were handing out prizes. Despite all that, Clark has mostly avoided public complaints. Aside from calling out blatant incidents like the Kennedy Carter shoulder check that clearly had nothing to do with basketball, she hasn't framed the issue as a league-wide problem or led a public campaign the way others might have. That's why her response to Steph Curry's interview stood out. By telling defenders to stop clutching him, she wasn't only backing Curry, she was subtly voicing her own experience without turning the spotlight inward. It was a calculated, composed way to make the point without sounding resentful or demanding favoritism. And the argument holds up. Fans tune in to watch Curry bury a dozen threes, sell out arenas, and move shoes off shelves because of his shooting brilliance. When defenses neutralize that by simply holding him, the entertainment value drops. The same principle applies to Clark. People want to watch her launch from deep, create shots off the dribble, and thread passes no one else sees. That's why crowds surged when she played and why networks prioritized her games. When defenders are allowed to hack her without consequence, the quality of the product declines. The league has oddly framed excessive contact as a virtue, as if rougher automatically means more authentic, but that logic completely misses the point. The NBA deliberately limits that kind of clutching and grabbing because the league wants its star players to flourish, knowing fans tune in to witness offensive skill rather than defenders wrestling scorers off the ball. This concern isn't new or isolated. Kelsey Plum has spoken on it, Becky Hammon has raised the issue, Natalie Nakase has addressed it, and Stephanie White has acknowledged it as well. It's a league-wide problem that directly impacts perimeter scorers, particularly elite shooters who rely on rhythm and freedom of movement. What stands out, though, is that Caitlin Clark has largely avoided publicly criticizing officiating until now. She's taken a measured approach, likely aware that constant complaints can be framed as weakness or excuse-making. By reacting to Steph Curry's situation instead, she found a way to express the same frustration without centering herself in the conversation. That subtlety matters. Beyond that moment, other links between Clark and Curry have fueled speculation. Steph recently wore Caitlin's Nike sneakers. His longtime shooting coach has shared posts about her, and reading between the lines suggests she may be training with his personal shooting coach this offseason. There's no official confirmation, but the signs are difficult to ignore, and if true, it would be a significant development. Curry's shooting coach has helped sustain the greatest shooter the game has ever seen, and access to that level of knowledge, drills, and preparation would be invaluable. Clark is already the premier shooter in women's basketball, but sharpening her mechanics, tightening her shot readiness, and integrating concepts proven at the highest level could elevate her even further. The partnership also aligns from a branding standpoint. Nike has heavily invested in both athletes. Both are guards who challenge traditional ideas about shooting distance, both command extreme defensive attention, and both deal with constant physical pressure. The overlap is obvious. Curry has long championed women's basketball, often speaking about his daughters and the importance of visible role models. Clark embodies the type of influence that could inspire a new generation the same way Steph once convinced kids everywhere that shooting from the logo was normal. That shared mindset and on-court approach naturally fosters respect between them, but there's also an unmistakable competitive drive at play. Caitlin